ladies and hus, just kidding, gentlemen. No, and ladies and Latinas. Latinas hit me up, Austin, Texas. Anyways, today we're going over Sabrina Carpenter, Slop or Not, and we're gonna do this by going over four little things that are gonna let us know if Sabrina Carpenter is in fact slop or not. Right? That's gonna be what is slop. We need to know that, right? How do we detect slop? Third is how much of Sabrina Carpenter's music is slop or not, or otherwise, right? And fourth is going to be how talented is Sabrina Carpenter, regardless of the distribution of relative amount of slop or not slop in her catalog. So, and then finally, I'm going to figure out, are people going to tend to call her slop, or are they going to tend to not call her slop? What are you going to think? What do I think? All of these things are so interesting. Anyways, first we're going to start with the music matrix up here. It's going to show us whether slop is, right? So we got energy on this side, which is 0 to 11, the level of energy, perceived and physical. And then from 0 to 10, we have catchiness as well. Now, if you're not a fan of this energy level, metal, the punk energy level, the indie, jazz, country, blues, classical, whatever, energy level, if you don't like things in this energy level and it's not at least a 7 catchy, you're going to call it slop. So this is what we call the slop zone, right? So this is where slop resides. And then anything that's sufficiently catchy either gets called pop. If it's low energy catchy, it's pop. If it's high energy and catchy, above the energy line and above the catchiness line, it's called rock, right? It gets called rock. And so how do we figure out, though, if something, if something gives you energy, it's pretty obvious, right? Are people dancing? That kind of tells you. Are people, fighting each other in a mosh pit? That tells you another thing, too, right? If people are sleeping, that tells you it's really low energy, right? If you're at a spa, you want, 2, on energy, right? So it's very different energy levels. But how do we tell? So that's obvious, though, energy. Catchiness, less obvious. So how do we tell if something's less than a 7 catchiness? Because that's how we detect slop, is less than a 7 in terms of catchiness. Let's take a look over here. John, I'm sending it back over to you. Now, this is the Catchiness Index you're going to see. Is Sabrina Carpenter slop? Well, we need to have a good idea of how to detect slop, right? So a lot of things go into catchiness, but the easiest one for us to look at is predictability. It gives us a good general idea, a starting place. It's really useful. It gets us 98% of the way there. So if something's really predictable, extremely corny, Joe Bonamassa's music. If it's completely incoherent, completely unpredictable, it's just not even good anymore. It's the Mars Volta, except for 8 of their songs. And so that's guaranteed to be in the slop zone. Look at this, slop, 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 slop. But if it's between being balanced, like Back in Black by AC/DC or Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, or Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses, it's in the money zone, which does not mean it's guaranteed to be a smash hit. It just means it now has a chance at going all the way up there, versus if you're here, you can't get to a smash hit. You're just going to be a dud, or you're just going to be a dud, right? You're going to be slop or slop. So if you're in the money zone, you have a good chance of being still slop. You have a good chance of being for only fans of that genre or that artist. So this is only fans music. And then this is stuff that this is for everyone, right? This is hit quality music. Doesn't mean it had to pop off, right? If Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter never got radio play, it would still be a smash hit quality song, but no one would hear it. So it may have not culturally actually became a hit. So we have a good idea of this, and this gives us a good place to go. That's a kind of good, solid baseline intuition for catchiness. Now we're going to look at how much, question 3.3, how much of Sabrina Carpenter's catalog is it slop or not? Now, Latinas, once again, Austin, Texas, hit me up in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. But now we're going to get into this. This is the catalog audit to find out how much is slop and how much is not, right? A classic catalog has a decent amount of B-sides, duds, and hits. A less than 50-50 is B-sides, yeah. Read the friggin' chart yourself. You're not a toddler. No, I'm sorry. Anyways, this is an OnlyFans distribution where mostly there's not hit quality stuff and there's not really duds either, but it's mostly stuff that if you're a fan of this artist or what they're doing, you're going to get a lot of mileage out of it. But I think a good example of maybe more of a something that looks like this for fans, or maybe has a little bit of an upward tilt right here that also has a lot of hits, might be like Taylor Swift, because Taylor Swift has diehard fans who love, and there's pretty much to them, there's not a lot of duds, right? I haven't gone through the Taylor Swift catalog, but if you look at it, the fans are like, okay, it's a lot of just stuff that we love, and then there's a lot of stuff that everyone loves as well. Not as much as the entire catalog, but so that would be a little bit more of a a classic catalog mixed with an OnlyFans situation as a Taylor Swift. But you can see these are all rock bands in this scenario because that's mostly what I talk about, right? But like someone like Weezer, they have a lot of music that's for everyone and a lot of music that's for no one. They don't have music that's really for fans. If it's for fans, it's for everyone because it's so good. Everyone's going to like it, right? Versus David Bowie's got a couple hits and then most of his music isn't even for fans. It's just not good. It's just really unlistenable. Same with Limp Bizkit. I like Limp Bizkit. I like David Bowie. They all have like 10, 20, 15 songs that are really great in this range, but they have like 800 that are really bad. So it's the ratio. This doesn't mean an artist is good or bad, but it does tell you, are people in general going to be split? Are some people going to say, oh, they're really good, and some people are going to say they're slop? What's that going to look like? That controversy can kind of be, we can get an intuition for that based off the catalog audit. Now, if we look 50-50 catalog, like Led Zeppelin, they have like one bad album that's unlistenable, one album that's friggin' incredible, let's say, and one album that's for fans, right? Now, times that by whatever, how many albums they have in total, right? Divided by 3, times it by that. Anyways, Sabrina Carpenter. So what do I think her distribution is? Sabrina's probably going to be more like an for OnlyFans, or maybe even a less than 50-50 or flat. I honestly couldn't tell you specifically. I know, but she does have a lot of, let me see right now. She does have a lot of really catchy music. That's the thing. So I'm leaning more towards not this one. I'm leaning more towards a combination of these three, right, where there's a good bit of hits. It might be a medium level of hits and then a pretty high level of B-sides and then duds. I'm thinking that, so I'm going to draw that on our little whiteboard while we're keeping track. But now we're going to go to, is she talented regardless? Are people going to like her even if she does have a lot of duds, which in this case doesn't sound like it. But we do need to look at, if you just care about brand, if you just care about musicianship, like I want to grow up to be a singer, do I want to learn her songs? Will that inspire me to sing? And do I just like good music? I don't care about playing an instrument or care about branding. Do I just like good music? So for songwriting, she's got to get a green. I forget who I did this for, but overall, she's a green. She's excellent. Green means excellent, right? Musicianship, I think yellow's fair, but I might honestly give a green for some of the stuff lately is really good. It's not her doing it when it comes to the instruments, but the people she does have working on it are doing a pretty good job. Honestly, it'd be dishonest and disingenuous of me not to put a green there. So I think they're doing great on that front. They're doing great on the songwriting front. This is why you see, this is what I would call like a 3-quadrant pop star, right? When you have a successful pop star, this is what they have. I think she has really consistent now in the last couple albums, impact, aesthetic, stage design, outfits, the logo, the merch, the album art, the themes, everything's all coming together. So she's green, green, green. That means she's a 3-quadrant artist. And now we're about to see, I'm going to pull this up in a second, but now we're figuring out overall, is she slop or is she not? We know she's a good pop artist, right? But is Sabrina Carpenter slop, right? Do we have to actually say she's slop or not? And so most people, they don't just think of, well, is that one song she has good? Because what about the other songs, right? A broken clock's right twice a day. Does that mean it works? No, right? It's a slop clock, even though it's right twice a day. So if you have 2 hits like a one-hit wonder, most people are still going to call you slop. They'll say those songs were good, but the band, they're not going to say the band's good. Let's go catalog. I did the catalog. She's a 3-quadrant artist. She's good on talent, on brand, on song. And I think she's going to have a pretty low, if you're being honest, and you can actually look at this chart and say, well, I just don't like low energy level. I don't like pop music, right? Well, then that'd be the only reason you wouldn't like Sabrina Carpenter. But you can't actually say, out of these songs that I'm looking at, that she's bad. Now, here I'm going to give you my top 10 songs. Most people think, out of the songs I remember, where in general is she, right? Where on average is the energy of those songs that I think of, and where on average is the catchiness, right? So here are the top 10 songs I picked. I did Mamma Mi, Mamma Mo, Mamma Mi Espresso, and then Taste. You're going to taste me when he's kissing you. Anyways, please, please, please. Do, 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 do. My voice is starting to go from all these videos. Not kidding. I just didn't breathe enough. Anyways, Please Please Me, really catchy too. Busy Woman, really catchy. Bed Chem, really catchy. Juno, catchy. Nonsense, catchy. They're all really catchy. So on average, she's an 8 catchiness. But they're all, for me as a rock band, I say but, because they're low on energy. They're about a 3.4, which is not necessarily a bad thing. For me, though, I will say, and she's a 3-quadrant artist with a fans are going to get a lot of mileage, and even regular listeners are going to get good mileage out of it, to relatively low controversy. The only place you would get some controversy. So let's look at this actually, though, first. She's a 3.4 in terms of energy, which puts her kind of in this indie, jazz, blues, country, classical range, but in this case, kind of more like indie things. So 3.4. So she's for low energy music, she's at the higher end, right? You're not falling asleep. This is more of the dancing range, right? This is kind of like a dancing range, right? This is like a getting in a fight range. This is like a sleeping range. I'm going to bed, right? I'm falling asleep at the, boring classical music recital. And so when you look at her, she's at about a 3.4. So she's kind of at this indie kind of danceable level, right? Not a super fast dancing, but maybe like a very even intensity. Energy and intensity are kind of interchangeable. If you look like mathematically speaking, if you're talking about energy signals, if you're looking at frequency, I guess technically energy signals, right? If you're looking at the energy content of like actual like, boom, I sent energy, physics, right? The intensity of it is actually, it goes up and down like this. Now, one is squared and the other one's, you don't need to get into that girl math, boy math. That's boy math. But this is dude math. Anyways, she's about 3.4 in terms of here, but she goes all the way over to here for pop. She goes to about an 8. So people might call her a little bit indie pop, especially if you look at, I think, maybe some of her early stuff might get called a little indie. So she's right about here, but I bet her catalog, if you like plotted all the points, kind of ends up like this, right? Well, actually, maybe not, because she's pretty catchy. So honestly, it might be mostly around here. So this is actually pretty good. She's probably about this range in terms of like, where is her songs? So probably indie pop. People definitely not going to call her metal. Probably not going to call her rock, and they're probably not going to call her punk, right? And they're probably not going to call her slop. They're not going to call her indie slop. They're probably going to call her pop. And if someone does want to call her pop, in spite of the fact that she's slop, if someone wants to call her slop in spite of the fact that she's pop, it's going to be because they're probably someone who likes really high energy music, even if it's not good. You know what I mean? Versus me, I'm someone who tends to be right about here with my music taste, and I will come over here to get some really high energy stuff, just if I'm running out of high energy stuff that I've heard too much, right? That's also really catchy. I'll be a little lenient, but even I'll do that with indie too. I'll do that. But usually, I'm kind of in this range from a 10 to 6 on catchiness. If you don't tend to compromise in catchiness, you're probably not going to be like, well, she's slop because I don't like low energy music. You're probably going to be like, no, she's pop, right? And here's where the controversy will come in is her lyrics. This is something I kind of didn't get to. It doesn't really fit in for most of these artists, but her lyrics are, especially on the last on the last record, they're so like they're very strong. And I think that's something where like Mickey Avalon, Dirt Nasty, Eminem, a lot of 90s rappers, NWA, if very like direct, strong language, if that type like either just to go, I can't stand it, I don't like it, then maybe you're going to call it slop just because of that one thing you can't handle. And honestly, I think that technically goes back to our last chart here, or the second to last chart, which was the predictability, because this was the whole thing we're getting to. Let's see if I can just put this aside. Let's see, right? Well, that's weird. Well, if you wanted to look at this, there's stuff that you could have stuff that's like really good and in kind of the zany sweet spot in terms of production and like really interesting and not that predictable. But then if the lyrics are like really formulaic, that can kind of make it so that though it averages out to being between balanced and sweet spot, it could still be a dud for you because it's so formulaic that you just can't stand it. And so that's where I think some people, even if they're not just, listening to uncatchy music of a kind of far away genre or far away style or, kind of mood, they might still call it slop and not just be being a hater. They might just not be able to handle how direct the lyrics are. And they might just say that ruins it for me. That's fair. That makes sense. But anyways, if you're Latina, hit me up once again, Austin, Texas. Now, anyways, thanks for watching. Oh yeah, Latinas, see their guns. Let's get some guns going here. See, I got to work on the biceps. Not big enough for the Latinas. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. If you like the video, parasocial relationship, like the video, subscribe. You like me, parasocial relationship. I am your friend. Your family doesn't like you. I like you. I love you. Parasocial relationship. Parasocial. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Yeah. Anyways, have a good night. I guess if you're watching it in the morning, have a good morning. Have a good day. Thanks for watching. Yeah, let me know if there's anything else you want to see next time. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I know it's kind of like a long thing. It wasn't that long. What am I talking about? I was like later. Bye.